One. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Nerds of Legend again, because I screwed up on the title and forgot what we were doing this week, even though Missy was here, so I should have known otherwise. I am Ben. Next to me is Brennan. Below me are Joel and Missy, and we're going to get started talking about A Princess of Mars by John Carter.
Right, fuck you, Fitzy.
And Fitzy. Fitzy's here, a.k.a. the Lord of Pain. So, it was my pick this week. So,
and I thought, fuck it, we're gonna jump right over that to the.
Yeah.
Do you want to kiss Fitzy on the mouth?
I don't want to kiss Fitzy on the mouth.
Kissing dogs on the mouth. And why is that your Tinder profile? First
time. Before we lose any more listeners today because of my screw up, before we get started again, apparently because I forgot, next week is 1001 Nights, not tonight. So sorry, everyone. For a little snafu.
I'm actually really excited for that one. That was a great story.
Yeah, it gives me more time to read it.
Which I have not.
Yeah,
so.
It's like 14 hours.
Stellar. And I'm going to spend all of that in my office going over the same goddamn documents.
I'm probably going to Spark Notes it for this one. So, Princess of Mars. Some of you, our listeners, may have seen the failed Disney series John Carter, which was supposed to be a bunch of movies, ended up only being one because it was a failure in theaters, sadly, because I highly enjoyed it. Basically, you've got John Carter, who's a he's like a I believe, Civil War veteran, of a man of Virginia, which is said many times throughout this book series.
Man of Virginia.
I am John Carter of Virginia. Who basically he goes prospecting in the Southwest, in Arizona, I believe, and in the process he finds a really nice patch of gold that he's gonna mine with his buddy, who then gets killed by Indians on his way out, and then John Carter goes to
always the Apache.
Oh yeah, the Apache apparently is a big thing that gets mentioned a lot in this book. Sorry, listeners, it was a product of its time. He goes to avenge his buddy, then realizes, oh shit, there's too many of them, runs back, finds this cave. Basically, I think he gets shot, if I remember right, and is dying in this cave, and then he looks up.
Fumes.
Yeah, he looks up at a red star that he recognizes as Mars, and he just all of a sudden wakes up in a pit, and he realizes.
No. Remember, he looked down and saw his own body in the cave.
Yes,
and
so he looks up, looks at Mars, sees his own body, and then wakes up in Mars naked, and then meets some big fuck off green aliens. Finds out that on Mars he can jump really high and he's really strong because of the reduced gravity. Wins the respect of the green aliens that he had met. Eventually finds out that they're actually Martian humans. Weirdly enough, they capture a princess who he immediately takes a shine to and falls in love with and makes his lady.
Well, you see the pictures of her? Then they drew the artwork of her.
Pretty much every famous penciler for comic books has done some pinup of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just hair down to the middle of her thighs, and
her bangs are strategically placed in front of her, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Basically, forgot to mention, apparently culturally, they don't wear clothes on Mars, just strategically placed bits of metal.
I don't believe it was strategically placed. I just think it was just metal. I think we, with our prudish minds,
assume that they're covering the naughty bits. Yeah, I can see that.
No, but just bush hair everywhere.
It's orientated to get around sensors, I think, and that's like the only
nothing else. So you get this. The John Carter continuously gets into deep shit, fights his way out of it, impresses people
what he does.
because he's a man of Virginia. Eventually,
which apparently means flawless ass kicker. Like he's just
makes a bunch of cultural faux pas in the process.
Looking at the pic of Dejah Thoris, and she just big old hands for Dejah.
Which is very American of him, if I say so myself, of making cultural faux pas and then not apologizing for them, and then eventually wins his bride.
You did not appreciate that.
And he kind of wades into this conflict.
I did. Missy said Dejah Thoris looks just like She-Ra.
Dejah Thoris.
Dejah Thoris. Thorn.
Yes. So eventually he wins his bride. Finally, they have a blissful 5 years. Their egg is about to hatch, and then Mars is about to die, and then he gets teleported back to Earth as he dies, saving it. And
What's
then
sad as fuck, you're just glossing over it.
yeah, because I have a time limit to stay into for my synopsis.
Oh, I forgot to even start it.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm trying to stick to it. Anyway, so they do their thing. They get back to. He gets sent back to Earth. He gets super depressed. Mines the gold that he found, which surprisingly, in the 20 years that he was gone, or however long he was gone, did not get found. Becomes a rich man and tries to figure out a way to get back. And that's how the book one ends.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very similar. It's the quintessential Barsoom book, John Carter book. The cover, Tarkus, and the Thark, the 6 armed green aliens, their conflict with the kingdom of Helium. Dejah Thoris, I think, is the princess, and she's kidnapped. So
Princess of Helium.
Yeah. So John just kind of wades into this conflict, and with American audacity, kind of just starts making decisions.
One of the things that gets me, and that I love it and I hate it at the exact same time, is this is very symbolic of the time. Before the 50s, all their sci-fi is like America just walk in and they're like the best at everything. They're the best looking, they're the strongest, they're the smartest, the most amazing. Yeah. And John Carter kind of like personifies that. Like he's this like
he's the American everyman. Like that's basically what he's supposed to be. You know, he's Davy Crockett. He's
Doc Savage.
Yeah.
But how does that not bother you? Like we've talked about in like some of the books that I've recommended or Joel has recommended to pander to me is that Mary Sue. Like whatever that male version is, that's him, right? He just somehow like
Gary
walks
Stu.
in.
Yeah, Gary
like
Stu.
Walks into this like thing and
everyone bows down before him. Yeah.
Exactly. Like he stumbles into like being the greatest warrior. And then even like his like
it's a massive eye roll the whole time. You're like, oh, okay.
Like even his like, faux pas, like the not claiming her because he called her the princess and he said you're my commander or whatever, like even those like are just like small like teehees, like nothing. Everything is coming up daisies for John Carter until he gets transported back.
Yeah.
I would say for me it's like he at least gets his ass kicked sometimes.
Okay.
I do agree. I think in the world of like being a Gary Stu, I think he is like very close.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the cultural ignorance of, the culture on Barsoom, Mars, he would be. Everything he did was the greatest in the world.
It worked out, yeah.
Yeah. He just made some snap judgments that were like, oh, this animal's big and bulky, and therefore he's got to be slow, and Woola is like incredibly fast, and
which the portrayal of him in the fucking book of Woola is hilarious because he's just like this giant bulldog with like too many legs. It's just like shoots across the just like shoots across the screen like as a blur.
But it was a little annoying, and I laugh about it's especially that like American exceptionalism. Like I laugh about it. Like, I mean, my favorite story to tell you is like listening to the Flash Gordon radio broadcast where the guy Ming just appears in the atmosphere. It's like, you must be American because you're beautiful. You're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Like, but it's just silly. But it is, that's how they thought of themselves at the time. And like a lot of their stories are that way.
Yeah. I think, I don't know why. So it does bother, like, it does, like, it is very eye-rolling for me in this case. Missy, to answer your question, like, I think in my head with it is like, he is very Mary Sue-esque, but I feel like a lot of the times when we have that like Mary Sue discussion, which we've had with past books, it's like I feel like the person doesn't struggle at all, and I feel like he at least struggles. Like he has, he most of the time it feels like he's flailing around. Like he doesn't have like he's confident outwardly, but like we have like his internal thoughts, which are basically like, oh shit, oh fuck, oh god, I'm gonna die.
Into a lot of stuff. Like
most of the time those moments are like of like which would be like a Gary Stu moment is undercut by him basically like, oh god, oh shit, I'm gonna die, oh god, not again.
He's not aware, and it literally is going to sound stupid, but like he's not aware of his own strength. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it he gets out just simply because his physiology is different.
Like the first couple times he kills somebody, he's like, he basically just like, I think the first Martian he kills like was basically like just like he punched him in the face, and the guy just like crumpled. Like, I feel like that's. Like, he doesn't realize, like, that...
No, he doesn't realize his own strength. And I think, like, that's what saves him as a character a lot of the time.
You're right.
But there is...
By the end, though, it is very, like, it does... By the end with, when they... what's the name of the city? They take over Zidanga with his Martians. That is very. I agree. That is very Mary Sue-esque. Like these, like 100 aliens are able to overtake this advanced warlike city.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention, he developed telepathic powers in like 3 weeks.
Telepathic
language, like you can't immerse yourself in Spain.
Telepathic powers. Telepathic powers where he's able to read people's minds, but no one can read his. Yeah,
it's like by some odd physiology, they can. Okay,
and then just happen to like learn the 9, answer whatever thought waves.
But that guy knew he pulled it out of his head, so he tried to kill him, but he could pull out the fact that he was going to get murdered.
Yeah,
There was some that you're like that's lazy writing. But one thing that I was not prepared for, because like I thought he was going to be, standard sci-fi trope, like the man stands there and the woman's like, I love you. And that's it. Like she just clings to him. I did not expect like any like emotion in the story. And I was very sad at the end of it. I actually called Ben. I was like, fuck you, Ben. Like I was not prepared to have any kind of like sense of loss, you piece of shit.
I will say that the book and the movie kind of like meld together with me, because the Disney movie is actually 2 books in one.
Is that the god of Mars and
yeah. So like I forgot that it ended the way it did.
Yeah, the books, I will give you, it was a fun story.
Mm-hmm. It's a romp.
Lot of substance.
Well, and you little softy, it's a romance.
It is.
But it's your favorite kind of romance that had no sexual intercourse and
they made an egg.
Although we still want to know whether there's a cloaca or not involved or not.
With her laying the egg is just imagining John Carter boning chickens. I just could not get over the fact. I'm like, she has a cloaca. Because I don't know of any other orifice that lays an egg, so I'm like,
The context with which I think about it, if you think about like movies in the 30s and 40s, the closest you could get to 2 characters having sex was both of them sharing a cigarette. Like you couldn't even share the same bed on screen, so 2 characters pressing a cigarette to their lips was the closest you could get. to characters having intercourse. I highly doubt that because this was a compilation of stories that was put into a volume. So I highly doubt that this could have been published in magazines monthly or weekly for money.
Yeah, it was serialized. It was serialized in the pulp magazine, The All Story.
Yeah. So imagine if John Carter railed Dejah Thoris with his superior human physiology. Like, no, that's not gonna.
He marveled at the size of his penis, having never seen one before.
Yeah.
Most males on Mars.
I think the closest we get in this book is they embraced.
Right. Yeah. So,
prior to cloaca banging.
But this is the level of intimacy that Benjamin is comfortable with.
I've never said I hate the idea of intimacy. I hate it when they say things like, what was the one that we complained about that I complained about for the longest time?
Growled.
Impaled him.
That's mine. I hate that one. He hates sheathed.
Yes, sheathed.
The whoever wrote Akatar is just they're like cats bathing each other. Just all day long. And I want no part of that much licking ever.
I was invested in the story. I thought it was cute.
See a little bit of romance, a little bit of action. I feel like
that's enough to get me. Like I was invested in their relationship, so not just Dejah Thoris, but who was the Sola.
Yeah, I loved her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or her dad, or I
like
Star.
That's what's interesting about this book for its time. I feel like is the importance of the relationships that John Carter has with the different Martians is very important to the book. Even the dog, even Woola, it's important because it's like. Especially because he first gets there and he encounters this savage race that is basically very sadistic and sort of teaches them hey, if you're nice to people, maybe they'll do nice things for you. So
that's how we got all of the herd beasts. I can't remember what they were called. Thoats or
Thoats.
Thoats, yeah. Mm-hmm. He got them to by just simply being kind to them when their motivation was beat them about the head and he's like, you tried to scratch behind their ears, and
if you get unsaddled by them, it's your only chance, one of the two of you is going to end up dead, which begs the question, how do you even get on the back of the thing in the first place?
Right.
But let's not talk about that part.
There was I was talking to my mom. She's a very big OG sci-fi person.
Mm-hmm.
She loved. So we were talking. I'm like, bless you. Have you read John Carter? She's like, oh my God, yeah, I read that a long time ago when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were talking about it, and there was an observation that was kind of interesting. And I didn't really put it together until I started reading the second book with a different voice actor, who very clearly.
Did he also start every chapter with, "This is Chapter 13 of Princess of Mars"?
No, this one didn't. But he did make all of the Martians sound very stereotypical pre-1950s Indian.
See, I think that might be the one that I listened to.
So, it got me thinking, in the beginning, he's like, all Apaches are savages. And then he falls in love with all of the Martians. And I'm like, and you got me thinking, did Edgar Rice Burroughs, did he create the Martians as kind of
oh yeah,
these are also native, because he fell in love
you can tell during this book that it's basically Edgar Rice Burroughs trying to draw parallels with how Americans treat Native Americans by putting them through a different lens. And all of the civilized races on Mars are red people.
Yeah. Yeah, I was he didn't really hide it very well.
No. No, he did not.
It's one of those things that at the time you think would a lot of people have raised their eyebrow. They're like, what the fuck are you doing? Even when I was a kid in the 80s, in the late 70s, early 80s, it was still, kids would still play cowboys and Indians, and that was still a trope. Westerns were still out, and
Yeah.
you could still watch Bonanza and all that stuff on TV. And like that kind of flew in the face. Then like the Indians were still kind of the bad guys. Maybe not, but this one was a time where like all of the indigenous people were very much like they were all savage. They were all monsters.
Yeah.
Everybody looked at them like subhuman things. And,
Except for the friendly ones that knew English, like Squanto.
right.
Yeah.
But he had to maintain talking like an Indian in order so that we could still enjoy the kitsch from the shows,
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting. Like it came such a hard start of like the Apaches are all savages to my heart is left on Barsoom and I will do anything to get back. And you're like, that's a whole planet full of what you were describing as savages like 200 pages ago.
I mean, when you're like living a pretty aimless life just trying to find your riches and then you go somewhere where you're like literally Superman, wouldn't you want to go back?
Well,
I think it was because he was banging.
Also, he's basically become the king of Mars. Like,
He was a king. He had a queen.
yeah, he had a king, he had a queen. Everyone loved him.
Go ahead.
well, and like if you think about it, like and have like to the parallels to the last book we read, right? Like you have that similar, like those similar themes of like what is human, right? Like what is what are the like quintessential things, and so he does have that his own journey,
Yeah.
to not just, as Joel said, like not just see them as this savage, this someone who's super different, to then falling in love and like having this like whole life. Now, would he have been different had he been continued to be subjugated? Like it was in the beginning they said something like, it was weird because he won their respect, but he is equally their prisoner, right? Like, and so
They're still trying to figure out how he fits into their law code because he technically he's like a chieftain now because of like right of conquest, but also like he's still we're still in charge, right? Like,
yeah. It's like, and so again, and like, so it's, that navigating what that means, also that idea of, American exceptionalism, of coming in and just, conquering, different, races, like it's multi-layered. It's definitely a product of its generation, right?
I also was annoyed by this book because it continued the trope that we found in a lot of these early sci-fi fantasy novels where it's like the guy picks up the language in a matter of like weeks, days or weeks. And I'm like, bullshit.
Travels. It was like fucking 45 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there's giants. Well, now I'm fluent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was said to be a matter of days, or days or weeks in Gulliver's Travels, but still, I still don't like. That's like the one thing as someone who's trying to learn a language. Like, fuck you, and you're saying you can learn how to fucking fully speak and like be fluent with these leaders of this country in a matter of days or weeks.
Trying to learn
Spanish.
Yeah, Spanish.
I would have guessed German.
What?
Why German?
I don't know.
Is
You
it-
just scream like German.
Is it
No.
many pairs of calf-high boots he owns? Or
Not German.
That's why.
Not
That's
to
why it's the
Oh.
giant stein of beer. That'll.
Oh, it's a giant stein.
Yeah. He's probably got his own lederhosen.
He does. Underneath is his lederhosen.
No, I own a kilt. Thank you very
Like, oh,
much.
Mary, they was making fun of me again.
Anyway, yeah, I was annoyed.
It's Joel chases away our German fan base.
I
It's about Anyway, I tried to come up with something, and I'm trying to figure out why German would be the thing that you'd think I'd be trying to learn.
Now that I see it, that's all I think about. Like, no, I would go with like a Scottish person, like way more men.
We pissed off the Germans and Martians.
And Martians.
Sorry, Green Men of Mars. I just thought
of Germany, we apologize.
another interesting thing that I thought about this book was this was at a
native language there, Ben.
another interesting thing that I noticed was was that this book was written in a time when they were had started noticing that they would look like canals on Mars. So this was sort of a thought experiment by Edgar Rice Burroughs, where he was exploring the idea of there being a lost civilization. Can I stop now, or
no? Keep going. Entertain me, boo.
So like because
999
because during this time they had got the optical telescopes had gotten so good that they noticed these lines that they thought to look like canals.
I'm a little bit impressed and disgusted with the fact that he's making fun of such a noble people.
Am I making fun?
Yes, you are. You're a horrible person.
Well, when this was written in 1912.
Not a good time to speak in a German accent. That's fair.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I was trying to say was like there was a theory at this time that there were civilizations on Mars because they saw these lines that looked like canals and rivers. So there was like this belief that like what used to be a green planet had
too far away from Jules Verne's like 30 to the moon with those weird like there was a lot of.
I thought it was funny because this was like basically like a dude running with the idea of like what if there's this like now barren planet of where there's people still like struggling to survive, what would it look like and like are they more technologically advanced or what? Are they like devolved into like barbarism and sort of like that sort of thing?
They have a system that is if it does not function properly within 3 days, everyone's out.
Right. So you have this, which was cool because you have this sort of like, oh, this is sort of like.
All I thought of was Total Recall when I saw that.
And I wonder if
the little air plant in Total Recall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I was like, oh, it's smart.
Which is totally
a rip off.
If you look at it, the John Carter books has had a lot of influence on later books like Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers and Dune and stuff. So,
oh yes,
yeah.
Because it is foundational. Like it is. You go back far enough. Like it a lot of people read it and got ideas. Like read it and
there's 13 of them. Like. Also, by the way, Edgar Rice Burroughs, same guy that wrote Tarzan.
Yeah, which is wild. Like you figure. He's just got this thing for like half or mostly naked dudes hanging out in wild places.
Right.
The idea that you're relatively superpowered because of the difference in the planet's atmospheres and everything. And I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of a precursor to Superman. Like he's more of like the radiation of our yellow sun and its proximity. But
the other one, because he's from a man from Virginia.
Yeah.
A man from Virginia. So
I am John Carter of Virginia.
Yes. So
Disney was like, hey, we're going to make this movie about a man from Virginia, and the rest of the world was like, that's that.
No, that was.
Actually, it came out during the dead time. I believe, if I remember right, it came out during it came out in February, so it was already planned to be just like dead.
Yeah, Tarkus was portrayed by Willem Dafoe.
He was. He chewed on that scene.
Yes, he did. In the books, he's such an important character because he's basically the liaison to John as he's getting acclimated. He's like the first one he really meets.
I name him Dota Sojet, my right arms.
There was There's a really
Sorry.
terrible version of the Princess of Mars.
Is there?
Yeah, with Tracy Lords in it, so you know it was like just a fantastic film.
I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, played in a 2009 film.
Yeah, it looked like a shit festival.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why. So you got a 2009 attempt and a 2012 attempt, and they just never touched it again.
That means some small company's going to do it, just knock it out of the park.
Which is interesting because it didn't do poorly. Mixed reviews, praise for its visuals. It had really good action, really good music. I watched the shit out of this movie when it came out. Just failed at the box office.
Well, but like space is hard,
yeah.
Right? Like like there, like unless you have there's TV has done it well. There's been movie adaptations, but generally, like just, what do you Star Wars?
Yeah, it's difficult to convey emotion in space because no one can hear you scream in it. So
the other problem you have with John Carter is that I feel like in 2012,
he is so proud of himself right now. Brendan is literally
I got the eye roll. I got the eye roll from you. It's only
yeah.
I feel like this is the end. This is very much like a white savior movie.
Brendan, if he may tell you.
I said,
what's the reference?
Oh, that's the slogan for Alien.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew the reference. I didn't know where it was. I knew the phrase. I didn't know where it was from.
Anyway,
probably the greatest catchphrase of all time in a movie poster. Anyway,
this is basically because they were about to lose the rights for Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff because they hadn't made another movie on it in a while. Basically,
open for anybody. So
it's in the public domain. If it was published in 1912, at least.
Right, but they're I think they'd had secured film rights from the estate or something.
Yeah. Well, I think 100 years. That's why, Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, they, Disney lost they have entered into the public domain because you can only copyright for a year.
That 2010s time was also weird for Disney. I feel like. But yeah.
Because Michael Eisner?
This was Stanton.
Oh, okay. The Eisner was going gangbusters in the 90s, and then they were seeing periods of transition with the higher-ups running the company.
Yeah.
Trimming the fat, as it were, if movies weren't making enough money and that sort of thing. You had the Lone Ranger and you had John Carter. That neither of them made a lot of money.
God, the Lone Ranger, that was a million years ago.
But that one came out right
2012, which was what I was saying was I feel like this was very much at a time this movie this book and movie is very white saviory.
Very much so.
So I feel like 2012 is kind of you're right at that cusp of when this type of thing can kind of persist. So people are kind of tired of that was also a time that was back we had what was that Johnny Depp, was that Lone Ranger?
He was Tonto.
Yeah.
To mix reviews.
Right. So it's there was a bunch of stuff like that happening at this time, and they were maybe having sort of pseudo, maybe even having pseudo Native American stuff is probably not in vogue anymore, and they kind of
probably not. Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, cultural appropriation was started to be called to task for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had when I in the mid to late 2000s is when we went after a lot of college mascots and
Chief Alinawick was
yeah. So I mean, this was at the tail end of that, or still happening, but people are still being more aware of what it is, and so I think it was just maybe poor timing. Yeah.
Oh, this was Bob Iger. So this is right when they were trying to buy Lucasfilms. That's why they're this didn't work very well. We're just do Star Wars instead.
Yeah.
The new Conan movie came out in 2011, and that was a failure. Cowboys and Aliens came out.
Cowboys and Aliens
came out. Yeah, so you had like, so like,
I feel like that was they were trying to like create new franchise, new things that they could spin off.
Yeah, I'm just reading the Wikipedia on the movie, which is
because everyone just wanted to stay in Twilight.
Yeah, it's apparently like the marketing was really bad. Like the marketing was like seen as like one of the worst marketing campaigns in movie history.
For who? For what?
For John Carter.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with twinkly vampires, and every girl in the country was like, "Fuck that!"
So
more glitter, less.
They decided against naming it after its original Barsoom book names. They decided against naming it John Carter of Mars. Thought it would scare off female viewers and renamed it just John Carter, as I recall.
Yeah.
So I mean.
Yeah. So the head of marketing at the time was M.T. Carney, who was who had run a boutique marketing film in New York with no experience on movies. He kept rejecting marketing ideas from the studio, and his ideas were used instead. He kept ignoring criticism, using a cover of Kashmir in the trailer, released in conjunction with an ad during that year's Super Bowl, which would make it seem less current to the contemporary younger audience the film sought. Yeah. Yeah, so and then he for the billboard imagery, he used like stuff that looked more like old Star Wars films. Like basically he made it look like an old person movie, like an old person western or movie, instead of like being like, hey, just like show John Carter jumping around fighting aliens, and people will show up.
I can tell you, looking at that cover, there is nothing that I would want to watch.
Doesn't tell you anything. It's a dude against a sunset.
It looks like Stargate. It looks like the ending of Stargate.
Yeah, it's just like it's a bunch of like, it looks like a cowboy movie if you look at it.
Honestly, Cowboys and Aliens, like, because it said Cowboys and Aliens, I was like, fuck this.
No, it came out at the same time.
No, I know
like
that.
just before it.
I am absolutely 100% anti-Western.
Yeah.
I do not care for that.
Bryan Cranston was in it?
Yeah, like you said, Brendan, the title was sort of like all over the place.
All right.
No. Call the film an origin story about a guy becoming John Carter of Mars. No. This is John Carter of Virginia.
Of Virginia.
Yeah.
Becoming John Carter of Mars.
So, it's my pick now?
Oh, Disney reported believe the sex appeal of the popular Kish being shirtless throughout the film would draw women to see the film.
Not when they fucking made him look like that.
Yeah, he looks like... Basically, they made him look like, oh, this is another Conan. I remember when this movie came out, I don't think I'd read the books before. I thought it was just another Conan flick.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
It looks like Conan the Barbarian, but with a less jacked guy. The hair...
His hair's the same style as Jason Momoa at the time.
And the harness, like, it just looks like a skinny Conan.
You're right, then.
Yeah, anyway, your pick, Joel.
All right. I kind of want to do Dune. I've been talking about wanting to do Dune for a while.
Part 1?
All of Dune.
All of Dune?
No. Not the first book. I was thinking...
Messiah?
No.
Dune Messiah?
Messiah?
I was thinking the second one, Children of Dune. Why?
Dude, Messiah is so good.
I haven't gotten to it, but we need to build up to it.
Okay.
Why are we skipping to the second book?
I'm going to let you guys pick. It's either that one or The Dragons of the Autumn Twilight.
The fuck is that?
Dragonlance book.
Oh, another dragon.
First one of those.
Ooh.
I would make the argument, and some agree with me, that
Dune, the second Dune's about to come out.
It is. You could compress all of Dune into the first book and Dune Messiah as part A and part B.
Mhm.
You can encompass the whole series of those 2 books. If you really want to.
But there's a whole lot more shit in there.
There's so much more.
Yes.
Of what? Do you need to read the first one to get the context of the second
So
one?
there's Dune Part 1 and Dune Part 2.
None of them make sense.
Like, there's 2 books in the first Dune book. It's one of those. It's like Lord of the Rings. They can exist without each other. And
No, they can't. That story is terrible by itself. No, I'm going to do the Dragonlance book. Dragons of Autumn Twilight.
Okay.
all right. So, you heard it from Joel. Dragons of who's the author?
Margaret Hickman.
Wait, why that one? The other one's works.
Oh,
So,
I think I want to do.
I would say I don't think we'd want to do like the second book in the series as our.
No, not out of.
It's very apropos for the film coming out, Joel. So
Yeah, we could do Dune Part 2.
I feel like. Okay, fine. We'll do Dune Part 1.
Part 1 or Part 2? We could do Part 2.
Do Part 2 later.
Okay. Because you've been talking about it since we started doing this. So
Yeah, I know. I just don't want to put Missy through that.
just if you want to ease her in, just under no circumstances show
Well-
her the David Lynch Dune movie.
1981, dude, that was fucking great. You shut up. I love that one.
Oh,
What about
God.
the one with Timothy Chalamet?
Chalamet.
That's what his name
I mean,
is.
you could watch the first movie. It's a shot-for-shot remake of the fucking book.
Like, literally.
It removes the scene of the coronation dinner when the Atreides family are given Arrakis and they have all like the political whispering. They cut that out, but everything else is pretty much.
Yeah. So Dune Part 1. Which is that? That's not Sanderson, is it?
But let's be prepared to have read both sides.
We'll try. I was just saying, I'm pretty sure that's a 24-hour book. If I remember right.
Yes.
It is.
So I'm saying we might want to just do to Part 1. We'll try for both if we're at least get through part one and Part 2, or Part 1, and then if people are
That
keep
one
going.
or Triceratops and Bottoms.
Fuck you.
We're gonna go with Dune by Frank Herbert.
Yes, thank you.
With Triceratops and Bottoms.
Triceratops and Bottoms.
You might like this one, Missy.
Yeah, you might. You might also like Triceratops and Bottoms.
Bottoms.
All right.
This Frank Herbert is only 3 hours and 23 minutes. The Dune audio collection.
God damn it.
You like little pieces of Dune? Perfect.
All right. So thanks everybody for watching. I hope you liked our little John Carter stuff. There's 13 books. If you really like the first one, there's 12 more of them. I will say after about book 5, he starts kind of recycling plots.
I've got good news for you. Wait, I've got good news for
He
you.
was getting paid to write, so
I think this is German. You can listen to it in German then. You've got options. It'll help you.
Thanks everybody for watching. Good night.
Wait.
In het begin is het moment